This episode of Warbird Tube is brought to you in part by Aviation Discovery Fest. Celebrate the spirit of freedom as Aviation Discovery Fest returns to Dallas October 4th through the 6th. Experience world-changing vintage aircraft and military vehicles. See living history with authentic reenactors and pay honor to the veterans of the greatest generation. Plus, you can take flight with living history flight experiences. Be sure and get your tickets today at aviationdiscoveryfest.org.
Hey everybody, welcome to CAF Warbird Tube, the show where we talk about World War II, aviation, history, and so much more. Warbird Tube is produced by the Commemorative Air Force, the world's largest flying museum. Our mission is to educate, inspire, and honor through flight and living history experiences. The CAF began the Warbird movement more than 65 years ago, and thanks to the support of individuals like you, we continue to grow strong. We hope you enjoyed this episode, and now our host, Steve Buss. Thanks for watching and keep 'em flying.
Good evening and welcome to CAF Warbird Tube. This is episode number 174 of Warbird Tube, and we're glad to have you with us because tonight we're going to take a look ahead at the CAF Aviation Discovery Fest, October 4th, 5th, and 6th at Dallas Executive Airport in Dallas, Texas. But before we get started tonight, please do us a favor if you haven't already done so. Take a second to like, share, or subscribe and follow us. And if you do subscribe on YouTube, click that bell icon and you'll get notifications about new episodes of Warbird Tube when they're posted. Now, Warbird Tube is made possible by the Commemorative Air Force. To find out more about the CAF, our events, our aircraft, local units, or how you can join the fun, all you have to do is visit our website, commemorativeairforce.org. Now, as you're watching tonight, if you have some questions, just go ahead and put those in the chat box. We'll try to answer them either during the presentation or we'll save some time at the end to answer questions you may have about Aviation Discovery Fest. And joining me now is the Vice President of Marketing from the Commemorative Air Force, Leah Block. And Leah, normally you're on the other side of the camera doing the helping doing the technical things during these Warbird Tubes, but it's nice to bring you out front.
I know. I'm pretending that it's not live because I'm more comfortable on the behind the curtain, but I am excited to be here. And yeah, you know, I talk to you every Wednesday for a long time, so this will be kind of like that.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Same thing, except, you know, we're going to talk about airplanes. No, wait, that's what we do every week.
Yes, it is.
So, Aviation Discovery Fest is just a couple of years old, but it's sort of a melding of a lot of different elements that have all come together to be a very unique event. We have airplanes, we have hands-on activities, reenactors, airplane rides. But let's start with the airplanes first, because that's, of course, the big draw for the Commemorative Air Force. What are some of the aircraft we're going to see at Aviation Discovery Fest?
So I was thinking kind of long and hard, like how am I going to explain a multifaceted event on a webinar? Like what does that exactly look like? And here's what I came up with. If you have ever seen the movie Night at the Museum, you know that you walk into the museum and everything is, you know, static and the artifacts are all just sitting there and the mannequins are perfectly still in various poses. And at night, when, you know, the doors are locked, everything in the museum comes to life. All the mannequins come to life. All the different pieces of history are all moving around and talking and interacting with each other. And that is kind of exactly what this event is like. If you walked into a World War II aviation museum and somehow everything came to life, that's what this event is. That's the best analogy I can come up with so far. So the aircraft we will have there, we'll have the B-29 Fifi will be there. The B-24 Diamond Low will be there. We will also have the B-25 Yellow Rose that's coming from San Antonio. That will be the second time that we've had the Yellow Rose in Dallas. And then we will have the C-47 the D-Day C-47, we call it That's All Brother, which is also coming up from the San Marcos area. That aircraft has been there before, but it recently came back from Normandy. So we have a lot of exciting stories to tell of summer in France with that aircraft. We'll have lots of different fighters that will be there. We'll have the P-51 Mustang gunfighter, which is an iconic fan favorite for the CAF. We'll also have the P-40 Warhawk. So the CAF, we only have one P-40 and is often traveling with Tora as part of that act. So normally if you see the P-40, it's with Tora, which means it's usually not static on a ramp, but for Aviation Discovery Fest, it will be. So that's kind of exciting to see that aircraft there. We'll have the WASP T6 Nella will be there. This is a advanced trainer Texan that we found out that had roots as a trainer for the women Air Force service pilots. So Nella, wow, we're going along perfectly with the pictures. So Nella will also be there. Nella is also, our aircraft tend to have, they're almost like characters in a story. They have this history and they have a name. And so you learn their story and they kind of, they become these characters for people. So they have fan favorites. So Nella's another fan favorite. And then one of the aircraft that we have this year that is not flying, so it's going to be on static display, is our new AC-47 Spooky, which this will be the first CAF event that Spooky is going to be at. This will be the very first one for the aircraft. So it's very exciting for us because, as you know, we are really historically been a World War II era organization for the most part. We do have some, late war aircraft, but Spooky is very well known for being a Vietnam era aircraft. So this is kind of a different one for us to see how it goes. And then I just found out today that we'll have the Bell 47 helicopter. So I like to think of it as the Batcopter because it was the original Batcopter, but most people know it as the MASH helicopter. It's the helicopter that's in the TV show MASH, which was about the Korean War. They have a Bell 47 in the beginning, so that's how most people know that. So that will be there also, which is another rare one for the CAF because we only have one helicopter in our fleet. So that's just a cover. A cover of, we do have two. The only flying helicopter is the Bell 47. I should say. Yep. We do have a hoverfly.
That's right.
That one day hopefully will, spring into action. But for now, we just have the one. So yeah, we'll have other trainers and.
So are they? Yes. Are they flying the 47 from the Bayou Bell? Are they flying it or are they trailering it to Dallas?
I'm pretty sure they're trailering it to Dallas. I'm almost positive that they're trailering it to Dallas. And what a fun ride that would be to be driving down the freeway with the helicopter behind you. Yeah, I think it's probably a lot faster for them to drive it than to fly it. I'm assuming that. Yeah.
Well,
and that
not only driving with the helicopter behind you, but think about all the people on I-10 watching that going west or going back home later on.
Right. Like you go and get gas at the gas station and there's a crowd of people surrounding your helicopter cargo.
Awesome. Well, one of the big things is the opportunity not only to see these airplanes fly, but actually to take a ride in one of the aircraft. Everything from the B-29 down to the early trainers like a Stearman, something like that. So tell us a little bit about some of the rides.
Yeah, so the rides have become, a really important part of what the CAF does at events. Not only the people pay for the rides, so not only does the revenue from the rides help support the aircraft, we hear from people all the time. I can't believe I rode in this airplane. And once you ride in the airplane, that one becomes your all-time favorite aircraft. It's an amazing experience no matter what aircraft you fly. I've yet to see someone have a frown on their face when they get out of a warbird. I have not really seen that one yet, but it's a really cool experience, and it's just such a different experience. You know, it's really to fly in a vintage aircraft like that, you know, whether you're in a bomber and you get that experience of, you know, the noise, just the reverberation of the engines on the metal, which is very different, or you're in a trainer and it's, you know, an open cockpit and, you know, you're hanging on to your sunglasses the whole time. No matter what you fly, it's a very different experience. And we've actually started at the CAF a Vintage Warbird Riders Club. So when you ride a CAF aircraft, you end up becoming a part of the Vintage Warbird Riders Club. And so we're seeing there's people out there that are actually kind of going through the fleet, seeing if they can fly all of the CAF aircraft, which would be quite amazing. But it's pretty cool to see, you know, people get the opportunity to do it. And then, of course, what I love is when we have, well, now generally would be the grandchildren taking rides in the aircraft that their, you know, great grandparents or grandparents flew in, and you make that kind of generational connection for people who have family that you know, served in World War II, whether they were ground crew or a soldier, or, you know, just that it's such a vintage experience that it kind of puts you in the seat of history, literally.
It certainly does. Now, so we're talking about aircraft and aircraft rides, but there are also reenactors that are there with some vintage military vehicles as well.
Yes, we will. We'll have, I think this is probably going to be the largest living history encampments that we've had in an event. We've typically held this event on Veterans Day, which is a wonderful day to hold an event like this, but a lot of people are also tied up with other things that day. So the living historians, especially the reenactors, really wanted us to push the date to a different time so that more of them could participate in this event. And they're great. I mean, it's just kind of like walking onto a movie set, I would say. They really take it very seriously. They're very period authentic, and they will explain anything to you. You know, that you can ask them, you know, what are you wearing? What is this? What is this, you know, machine for? How does this work? Lots of vehicles will be there, and you know, the fun thing I think about the CAF is everyone who is a volunteer there, which all the people that are there are volunteering their time to be there. They're so passionate about it that you go up to any of them and ask a question, and you just, you know, brace yourself for tons of information that they're just really excited to talk about. And the Living History Group, I mean, that it really sets the tone, I think, for the event, to have people kind of walking around in uniform. You get the feeling that you're kind of at, you know, a historic air base from a long time ago. It sets a theme really nicely with those guys.
It certainly does. And they've been a part of this event every year. And like you said, this will be one of the biggest encampments. And before we came on the air, you mentioned the Education Day, which is on Friday, the 4th, and that has grown as well. And you've had to cap the registrations because there's no more room.
Right. Yeah. From the inception of this event, which we started around 2015, we've had Friday was Education Day. So we had a hangar that we filled with activities, and the rule was they had to be somehow aviation, STEM, history related, had to be hands-on, and you know, if you build it, hopefully they will come. So the first year we did it, we had a few hundred kids come to the event. It's free for students. And it was very exciting to say, wow, you know, we talk about education all the time. You know, our mission is educate, inspire, and honor. But here we are, you know, with a hangar full of students, we're actually kind of doing it, which is very exciting. So we were thrilled, you know, when we had 500 students show up on Friday, we were pleased as punch. And I was just telling you before we got on that we had to cap it on Friday because we had around 1,000 students register. And so now we're, you know, home schools, we're offering for them to come on Saturday and Sunday, so it's not just on Friday. But I kind of, you know, I really love walking around on Friday and seeing, you know, all the different age students that are there, and it is a busy day. I mean, I will say they are engaged the whole time, and there's just so much to do and see, and it's so different. I mean, it is just a very different kind of day, and so yeah, we're Aviation Discovery Zone is what we call that hangar of activities. And we're even going to start in the NAC, the National Aviation Education Center in Dallas. We're going to start doing these kind of maybe on a couple of weekends here and there, having an Aviation Discovery Zone weekend so that people can experience it outside of this event also. So stay tuned for that.
All right. Well, right now we're going to talk to Kevin Hahn, who is helping to organize a lot of these activities. We'll talk about those activities and some of the other things that are going on at Aviation Discovery Fest. Joining us now from Commemorative Air Force, Kevin Hahn. Kevin, great to have you on the program.
Good to see you, Steve.
Yeah, you have a very interesting position with CAF and the National Aviation Education Center. Tell us just a little bit about what you do on a regular basis, and then we'll get into the specifics of what's coming up at the Aviation Discovery Fest.
Great thing about my job is every day is really different. My function is as museum educator, but that includes overseeing the archives, the oral histories, our artifacts that are stored here. It's not unusual to see me helping people move airplanes. I fly on Fifi on tour during the summer. Of course, programs that we have going on here at the museum, things like Aviation Discovery Fest, Warbird Weekend, which we had last spring as well. So every day is a joy. Every day is something brand new.
Well, one of the great things is the brand new hangar there, the Agatha hangar. Great facility to have lots of hands-on activities. And just what are some of the things that will be happening during the Aviation Discovery Fest?
Well, this is going to be I believe our fourth time to have Aviation Discovery Fest, either as part of a previous events or as a standalone event. Our education side of the Henry B. Tippie National Aviation Center. Some of the activities that we have on the first day of ADF, we have stomp rockets where kids will come in and create their own rockets and then launch them across the hangar. We'll have a build your own glider. One of our special treats this year is it's a return visit from That's All Brother Junior Flight Simulator, and that's always really, really popular. And of course, we have opportunities for our kids and our visitors to get next to real World War II airplanes. We get to meet veterans. So we have a lot of opportunities that you wouldn't have in any other museum type setting or even any other air show type setting.
What are some of the more popular activities? I know stomp rockets is always big, but what are some of the other ones that young people tend to gravitate toward?
The flight simulators are always real popular. We have both the That's All Brother I mentioned earlier is actually a facsimile of a C-47 cockpit based upon the C-47 that the Commemorative Air Force flies. That's All Brother that recently went to Normandy for D-Day. But we also have other flight simulators here as well. A lot of those activities, there are different stations that you can move to from place to place, and then you can earn some of those activities as well. There's always takeaways. There's always things that parents can do with their kids. So there's always souvenirs that you have to take with you at the end of the day.
Now, is there a sort of a rotation that you encourage people to go through all the different activities?
There is. When students enter, they're given a card, and on that card, they can go from activity to activity. It'll be stamped. And when they acquire a certain number of stamps, then they can go to those earned activities like the flight simulator.
Okay. Well, good. Will you be staffing any of the activities, or are you going to be everywhere during the event?
You know, I tend to put in 10 to 15,000 steps each day. This year, one of the things that I enjoy the most, and that's working with our veterans. We have a number of World War II veterans, as well as some from Korea and Vietnam that we'll have as our guests. And part of what I'll be doing is interviewing them, talking about their experiences, as well as we'll be doing some Warbird and review type activities. We have several special airplanes that'll be here, of course, our B-24, our B-29. We have a AC-47, nicknamed Spooky, who will be here. It's a recent acquisition by the CAF. And so we'll have a couple of gentlemen who flew that type of aircraft during the Vietnam War. We'll be having a panel out on the ramp where we can talk about the airplane, their experiences, something really new for us.
Very good. Is there a schedule of activities that people can look at? And I know with veterans, some of them are getting a little older, so it's sometimes health concerns and things like that. So I understand everything is tentative, but is there a schedule of veterans that might be there?
So if you'll go to the CAF website and click on the events tab, you'll see, of course, Aviation Discovery Fest, and on there we have a daily schedule. But in general terms, we'll have our veterans toward the middle of the day, between 11 and 2, just out of respect for their age, and we want to keep them out of the weather. You know, this is North Texas, so it can be either cold or hot, sometimes even in the same day. Yep. So we want to make sure that we take the very best care of them.
Are there any veterans that you'd like to sort of spotlight that folks might recognize?
I would. We have several who have spent time with us before. We have Henry Bohn, who was a B-29 mechanic during the Korean War and worked on these engines that, of course, our B-29 Fifi has. Spent 16 months on Okinawa servicing those aircraft. We also have, very popular with us is Major John Luckadoo. Lucky Luckadoo is a member of the Bloody 100th bomb group during World War II. Folks who have delved into World War II aviation will certainly know the name of that group. He is an author, and he'll be here to sign copies of his books as well.
Very good. And speaking of Henry, we have a video that we recorded last year at Aviation Discovery Fest, and he'll talk about his experiences, as you said, working as a mechanic with the B-29.
That's right. That's right.
Well, good morning, folks. Once again, we are celebrating Veterans Day at the Aviation Discovery Fest. And we're going to be talking to Henry Bohn in just a moment, but we wanted to let you know we're obviously recording this, and it's going to show up on our Warbird Tube, which is on CAF's YouTube channel. And Warbird Tube is seen every Wednesday night. You can see it live at 7 o'clock Central Time, and also on our, like I said, on the YouTube channel. You'll be able to see it as well. So you'll see some of these interviews that we're recording this weekend. So Henry, thank you for being here, and what are your impressions so far of what you've seen at the show?
Well, I'm glad to be here, and I'm glad to see all the 500 kids that were here yesterday. Yeah. And it's good to see the children today that's even interested in what we're doing.
Yeah, it's very good. And we just heard the B-29 just took off just a moment ago before we started talking. That's your home plate, isn't it? The B-29. You worked on B-29s in the service.
I can't hear you.
You worked on the B-29. You were a mechanic with B-29s. Tell us a little bit about that.
What do you want me to talk about? I mean, I've never done this before, but I worked on B-29s. I was an A&E mechanic. I got out of high school, and I joined the service right away. I went home and told my mother I signed up, and she cried. But one of my friends I told her I was going into the Air Force because I like to work on engines and stuff. But one of my friends, very close friends, he got drafted, and he went over to Korea and got blown out of a foxhole and was captured twice. So I'm very fortunate that I went into the Air Force where I didn't have to fight like that.
Tell us a little bit about the things that you did to maintain the B-29s.
Well, the maintenance on the 29 is every time they took off, you had to pre-flight them to make sure the engine was okay. You had to walk the propeller around so to get the oil out of the bottom cylinders. If you turned the engine over with the bottom cylinder full of oil, you'd bend the crankshaft.
What was it like? What were the conditions like when you were taking care of those B-29s?
Well, they had a good flight, good aircraft hangars but they were not hangars. They were just, you pull the aircraft into them and you work on the engines. You had heart stands to work on, and if you had to work on the tires, you would do that where they were parked if you had to change tires. But where you had to work, and you didn't change jugs on an engine because over in Okinawa you didn't have time, and what you would do is change the engine, the whole engine altogether. And those engines cost about $100,000 a piece. That's now the B-36 has got 4 rows of 9 cylinders. The B-29 had 2 rows of 9 cylinders, and there's a big difference in them.
That was a lot of engine to take care of. And were the B-29s in Korea, did they still have the in-flight fires like they did in World War II?
Had what?
The fires in the engine?
Yes.
So that was still a problem?
Yeah, they were changing over. They had fuel injection. Now they got regular carburetors. So because they were having trouble with the fuel injection on them.
And how was that for you as a mechanic to make that transition from fuel injection to carburetors?
Well, we just had to learn the difference. But they had more trouble with the fuel injections on the engines, and that's why they went back to the carburetors, because the engines would not accept the fuel from the injection on them.
Do you know how many B-29s were stationed where you were?
No, I don't know. I know, but there was about 75 to 100 there in Okinawa. We were at Kadena, and I was lucky enough to get to fly into Iwo Jima and see the place. I went in there on Easter Sunday, and I got to go on top of Mount Suribachi when they had the Easter services there. I was very fortunate.
Can you tell us more about that, about those Easter services?
Do what?
Tell us more about the Easter service on Mount Suribachi.
Well, the Suribachi, they still had the caves and everything that the Japanese was running in, and Suribachi was the main hospital. They had inside the Suribachi, they had like a big hospital. And I wasn't supposed to go into the caves, but I went into them because there was still they were still booby trapped. They had, before I got there, they had about a crew of 90 Japanese people that came from Japan to try to I'm trying to think of the word, degenerate the...
Demobilize?
Yeah. Take the bombs away, or whatever, the hand grenades, whatever they use for detonators. But within 20 days, there was only 20 of them left, and they quit doing it. because they were blowing themselves up without knowing what they were doing, because they had all kind of different booby traps, and I didn't touch anything because I knew I'd get in trouble.
Tell us, after the war was over, what did you do when you came back to the States?
Well, I came back to the States, and they put me in working on C-119s, which had the same engine as the B-29 had, and I was in Tinker Air Force Base. Nope, excuse me, Tinker is in Oklahoma City. But I went to, in Tennessee, I went to the C-119 base, 48th Troop Carrier.
Okay. And after you got out of service, what did you do after that?
Well, my dad wanted me to get out. I wanted to stay in, and my father wanted me to get out and help him at the greenhouse. We had about 100,000 square feet of glass. And I got out, and 4 years later, he died before I got to learn anything about spraying or feeding or planning or anything like that. So my mother walked in one day and said, you are laid off. We're going to have an auction next week. I didn't want you to die like my husband did. So I ended up moving to Colorado and becoming a master plumber. But it was still working with material, and I like to do that, and repair work.
Good. Have you seen Fifi fly?
I got to fly in Fifi. Okay. And it was very enjoyable. Well, as I said, I watched the flight engineer do what I did. And you got to know what you're doing. You've got 4 engines to take care of. You got to watch the dials all the time. If it heats up, you got to open the flaps. I mean, that's what he does. He doesn't take his eyes off of the instruments for very long.
And I know if you ask a flight engineer on a B-29, yes, they'll say they're the ones who really fly the airplane. Yes. They just let the pilot steer, right?
Yes, I was sitting right beside the flight engineer. I did the same thing he did when I was in flying with the B-29s.
Well, Henry, we are so glad that you're here. So are you going to be back in the hangar in a little while? Are you going to go back in there? All right. So
thank you for talking.
Yeah, thank you.
For having me.
Yeah. So if you'd like to meet Henry up close and personal, and George as well, they're going to be inside the hangar by the veterans table. So please, yeah, he'd love to talk to you. I'm sure he's probably got some more stories he hasn't told me about yet.
Next time.
He just said next time he'll tell me some more stories. So that's good. And again, we're recording this. It'll be on Warbird Tube. Again, you can see it Wednesday night, 7 o'clock Central. Let's hear it for
I'm glad I did it, and I'd do it again if I had to.
There you go. He just said, I'm glad I did it, and I'd do it again if I had to. Thank you, sir. Thank you for your service, and have a great Veterans Day.
Okay, Steve. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
One of our other veterans, and we're hoping to see him, spend some time with him, would be George McAlpin. George is a World War II veteran who was involved with the 101st Airborne. And I believe he was an engineer and was involved in protecting some of the road intersections there in Bastogne before the 101st relieved the troops there.
Ladies and gentlemen, joining me right now is George McAlpin. And George, you are a World War II veteran, and you were with the combat engineers. Is that, I understand correctly? That's right. Tell me a little bit about how you got to sign up and be part of the engineers.
There was no choice on this. You just got, when we finished basic training in Fort Leonard Wood in Missouri, the next couple of days, 2, 3, 4, 5 people would be assigned off to different places. And then one day a call came in for 8 people to join the 35th Engineer Battalion. They looked around and there were just 8 of us left. So there was no decision to be made at all. So the next thing I know, we're on a train heading for Northwest Canada, where this engineer outfit was building a section they had built 300 miles of the Alcan Highway in 1942. And in 1943, they were building a road from the Alcan to a small town called Norman Wells, where there was actually an oil field. And the road was being built to allow civilians to lay a pipeline from Norman Wells to Whitehorse, where there was a small refinery. Whitehorse, if people don't know, was a stopover on planes being flown Lend-Lease to Russia. And so this was all part of the, and of course the reason for the Alcan Highway was we weren't sure who owned the Pacific anymore after Pearl Harbor.
Very true. How long were you up there?
I was only up there June, July, and August. The end of August, we had completed the road so that the pipeliners could go ahead. And so we were moved back into Camp White in Oregon. When we got back there, well, first off, several things happened. We had been a regiment, and the Army no longer needed that, so we were split into 2 battalions. A, B, and C Company retained the 35th designation. D, E, and F became the 145th Engineer Battalion. The only funny story that goes with that is that the original colonel who had been in charge of the 35th Regiment for purposes of parade had assigned people to companies depending upon their height. So the people at A Company were all 6'2" or more. B Company, 6'1". Being right at under 6 feet, I was assigned to C Company. So I got to stay with the 35th Engineer, and then the 145th was full of a bunch of little guys.
So we're talking with George McAlpin, and a World War II vet. So you worked on the Alaska-Canada highway. You were up there in summer, a mosquito season, right?
Well, there are several funny things about that. Yes, we actually had 1917 hats with brims so that we could wear mosquito nets. Once the muskeg melts up there are mosquitoes. Reportedly, some mosquitoes were refueled at the airport before they realized that they were just mosquitoes.
So after you've come back, we've got A, B, and C Company. Is that when you deployed to Europe?
Well, no, we came back to the States, and since we split into those 2 battalions, and then since these guys had been up there for 18 months, they said, well, what we really need to do is go back through basic training again. Well, of course, replacements had just come out of basic training 3 months earlier. Oh, well, yeah, but the Army says that's what you do. So we went through basic in September, October, November, finished up by Christmas. A lot of us got leaves to go home at Christmas time, came back, still had no further assignment, so they said, well, what we can do is basic training. So we did basic training again in January, February, and March. Well, that was 3 times of basic training in less than a year.
You had it down pat by then.
Oh, right. We were starting to get the hang of it.
You knew all the answers to all the tests, right? So this is what year? 1944?
This would be in 44. And so we in early April, we were given word to get on the train and head for New York. 4.5 days on a troop train. And we went to Camp Shanks, which was up the Hudson River from New York. It was a port of embarkation for Europe. So we got there and were told, well, the normal stay here is 7 to 10 days, so then you'll be shipping out. Well, 10 days went by, nothing happened. So finally, a couple weeks went by, and the camp commander at Shanks says, I've got this engineer battalion here. I think I'm going to make use of them. So we spent the next couple months building ball fields and drilling guns, doing drainage work and whatnot. The story that we were getting was that there was a rule, written or unwritten, that if you had been out of the country and came back in, you were allowed to be in the country a year before you were shipped out. Anyway, what finally happened was that we were in New York on D-Day, in Camp Shanks, and 3.5 weeks later, on the 1st of July, we were ordered to go down to New York to the port and board the ship for Europe. So we left July 1st, landed at northern Scotland in 12th, 13th. We go in convoy, you can't go more faster than the slowest ship, which was probably an oiler or a freighter or something. So anyway, we landed in England, refitted with all our equipment and everything, and then on the, let me get my dates straight, August the 8th, we sailed from Southampton to the northern coast of France. We actually landed on Omaha Beach because there still were no ports that had been opened yet. So we were on the 8th and 9th, we unloaded. And our first assignment after a couple of days was to go west, strangely enough. The Germans had established submarine bases at some of the ports in western France. So the town of Brest on the Brest Peninsula was our first assignment, and we were assigned to join the troops that were there. Actually, it was Patton's Third Army, so we had them surrounded. So we were cutting off their supplies, but it took a long time to reduce the port. So it was about the 3rd week of September by the time we finally finished that operation. By that time, the front had moved clear across, past Paris, clear to actually Luxembourg, Belgium. So we spent about 4 or 5 days just traveling east, and ended up in Luxembourg on early October, about the 5th of October. It happens that Luxembourg at that time was quiet front. The First Army was north of there, Patton's Third Army was south of there. So we just kind of went back to being not combat engineers, but just plain engineers. We ran rock crushers and sawmills to keep roads and stuff in repair. Actually, we were there from early October to December, and we're starting to think about buying a Christmas tree. Well, actually, let me throw one little other story in there. We had been loafing around there for so long that the battalion colonel said, I'll tell you what, fellas, what we're going to do. We're going to have a little contest between A, B, and C company to see who can build a 100-foot double Bailey bridge in the shortest length of time. So on the 13th, A company built it, 2 hours and 25 minutes. Next day, 14th, B company, a little bit slower, a little over 2 hours and 30 minutes. 15th, C company. It was our turn. When we were in the process, had probably almost 3/4 finished it, when this truck came up from a neighboring farm and said, there are 5 Germans eating lunch at our house. So we said, well, okay, we'll fix that. So a half a dozen of us jumped on a truck, followed the guy down to his house. One of our guys, Mike, we get there and it throws open the door, ready to do. These 5 Germans are dressed nice and clean. They knew that the next day the bulge was going to start, and they were getting the heck out of there. We didn't realize that until the next day.
So you were actually at the Battle of the Bulge before it started?
Oh yeah. Well, we were there. We were there because 3 days later, before the 101st showed up, said, we're here to relieve you. We said, thank you and goodbye.
So what else did you, after the 101st relieved you, what happened then?
We went back to doing engineering things. We went back, and all these little rivers and creeks had small bridges over them. Well, we wired all those bridges with explosives because we had no idea where the Germans were going next. And so we pulled duty round the clock, 12 on, 12 off, with a hand on the plunger in case somebody came down there that we didn't recognize.
How many, do you remember how many bridges you destroyed?
I don't know, there were, every little road over there had a bridge across, and these rivers were snaky, winding, so I have no idea. All I know is I had one bridge assigned to me, and we had I had four or five guys with me, and then there was a relief crew, so that, you want a side story?
Sure.
Okay. It came Christmas Eve. I was not on duty. I was back in town. My best friend, Harry, his father was a Methodist minister in Philadelphia, and he said, can I go to midnight mass with you? And we're saying, oh man, I guess. So I don't think he ever told his father that he had gone to midnight mass in a Catholic church.
Well, as they say, there are no atheists in foxholes, right?
Oh, that's amen, amen.
So what else happened with the Battle of the Bulge going on? There's a point where the Americans start pushing back. So how do they get across the rivers if you've blown up all the bridges?
I don't know. Well, they were the ones blowing the bridges.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Except for one at Remagen. We kind of took an assist on that because one day, I don't know whether a platoon or 2 platoons were called up to help this other engineer outfit finish a Bailey Bridge. So this division, it was the 9th Armored Division, which is the one that took over the Remagen Bridge. So we figured we needed an assist on that one. If you're keeping a box score.
After Battle of the Bulge, how did you finish out the war?
We finally start moving slowly, day at a time, actually the month of January is just kind of we must have done the same thing every day because no day stands out as being any different than any. Well, it move again. All right, let's move again. We move again. The funny thing about at least our engineer battalion was we seldom knew where A and B company were. We operated virtually as a company, sometimes as a platoon or a squad, just depending on what the nature of the job. But all through January, we did what we were supposed to do. And
when did you get back to the States?
On my 22nd birthday.
And what date was that?
December the 4th of 1945.
That's a nice birthday present.
After the war was over in May, there was all the redeployment of how long had you been in, how many points did you have. Since I was 1943, the battalion had been in 1942, so the majority of them were eligible to go home. So the battalion went, but I had to get transferred out, and so I got assigned to a job in Marseille. I have found out since not a lot of people know about this job. It was called Compassionate Leaves and Furloughs. There were a lot of American soldiers who were first and second generation, still had relatives in Western Europe. And so the Army came up with a program. The directive was signed by Ike, you know who that was. And it described the degree of relationship that you had to have, and then you could get a week or 10-day pass to go visit your relatives. And my job in Marseille was to read the application and see, if it fit what I had said. And of course, I was still an enlisted man, so I had to give it to the officer to sign it. But I was making all the decisions.
That's usually the way it works, doesn't it? Yeah. The enlisted guys do all the work, make the decisions, and the upper chain just looks good, right? I noticed that you're wearing an honor flight jacket. Were you able to go on an honor flight?
I went to honor flight in 2019. I see. Actually, my roommate was Lucky Luckadoo, and I see he's supposed to be out here one of these days. But I had two daughters. Lucky did not have an escort, so one of my daughters escorted Lucky, and the other daughter escorted me. And so we went to Washington, D.C. for 2 days in July, I guess it was July of 2019.
Well, for those who are not familiar with Honor Flight, it's a program where veterans, World War II veterans, now Korea and Vietnam, the airlines donate some aircraft. People raise money to do that, but to take the veterans back to the memorials in Washington, and many veterans have not had an opportunity to do that. So it's a very, very emotional and very, very moving, but it's really gained momentum around the country, and it's all over the country.
There have been over 40 some out of Dallas, yeah. Oh yeah.
Had you seen the World War II memorial before you took the honor flight?
No, I had not. As a matter of fact, strangely enough, one of the last ones that was completed was the World War II.
Yeah, that one took a little bit to get finished, but I'm glad you got to see it.
Oh,
yeah. Well, and what were your impressions when you got off the airplane and saw all the different memorials, not just the World War II?
Well, I guess it was fine. I was glad that people were being recognized, because after Vietnam and some of those the veterans were not really they were doing what they were told to do and what they're supposed to do, but it was not very popular back in the States there. So
The honor flight really is tremendous, and I'm glad you had an opportunity to do that. So these days, what do you do to stay busy? Because you're obviously a pretty active guy yet.
Keep low profile.
There you go. George, I appreciate you spending some time with us. Glad to have you here again. George and his son have been coming to the show here for the last couple of years, and always great to have you back. And before we did this interview, George leaned over and he said, "Do I have to tell the truth or can I make stuff up?" And I said, "George, do whatever you want, because none of us are going to be able to fact check you." So, but I think he told us the truth. So George McAlpin, thank you so very much for being here today. Happy Veterans Day, and enjoy the show.
Thank you.
Thanks, ladies and gentlemen.
Excellent. Well, Kevin, thank you so very much for giving us a brief insight into what's going on at the Aviation Discovery Fest with the veterans and hands-on activities for young people. And we'll look forward to seeing the results of all your hard work in just a couple of weeks.
My pleasure, Steve.
All right, and joining us right now is Jamie Siebert, and Jamie is with the Dallas Vintage Women's Society, and they have been a part of the activities at Dallas Executive Airport for the past several years, doing a Homefront exhibit.
Yes, we have. We've been involved with CAF.
There you go.
Sorry, we've been involved with CAF's fall aviation event since 2018. Oh, there we are.
Tell us a little bit about the ladies who are in this. What is it that brought you all together and focused on the World War II time frame?
So in our group, the Women's Vintage Society of Dallas, what really brought us all together first off was our love for vintage fashion. We're just a social group, and all these ladies have that love, but a lot of us also love what the history teaches us about, what the fashion teaches us about history, pardon me. And a lot of us especially really love the World War II years. And so that got us thinking that we can teach history with our love of fashion. And so that's kind of really where it branched off. And myself and our co-founder, Erin Patterson, we are really big and passionate about the World War II years. And so when we first visited CAF's aviation event in the fall, we went 2017, and we went dressed up in Homefront attire, and we realized we would be able to bring the Homefront to their events.
And that's really what you've been focusing on the past few years. And we're looking now at just a piece of the Homefront exhibit. But describe what's all a part of that.
Well, we have quite a bit of variations through our exhibits. The Homefront, if you think about it, was coast to coast. So there is so many pieces to the Homefront and so many stories that are not being told. We're just able to show glimpses of it. So we have everything from sweetheart jewelry to newspapers, newspaper clippings. We talk about rationing during the World War II years and everything in between. So we actually had Lucky Duke come into our exhibit last year, and he was quite impressed, and he had very kind words to say to us, and he even said we had pieces he had never seen before. So that was quite an honor to hear that from him.
Yes, he said something similar to me as well, as that he was very impressed with the exhibit, and very impressed that you were telling a story that sometimes doesn't get enough attention. And that is, we pay a lot of attention to, for the CAF, for the aircraft, for the military vehicles, people overseas, people, building airplanes here. But it really was an entire country effort. And you kind of did whatever role you had to help support the war effort.
Right. And the Homefront really also involved, you know, the women who joined the military. A lot of them were on the home front as well. And so there's so many stories, and I hear so often from these amazing veterans. They really pay homage to the home front and all that they did. They often tell me that they would not have been able to do what they were able to do if it wasn't for the support of those that were home.
When people come to Aviation Discovery Fest this year, October 4th, 5th, and 6th, what new items or new things do you have in your exhibit this year?
So we are going to be doing some demonstrations that we're really excited about. One is as simple as doing your hair a 40s style. Believe it or not, we get that asked of us a lot. But we also have one of our members, April, who's very passionate about ration cooking and all the war recipes. We're going to be talking about ration points, what rationing look like for families, and she's even going to bring in war cake that you can try as supplies last. But she is going to have pieces of war cake that you can actually try from a World War II recipe book using what was rationed and the points that you were allowed to use for such an occasion. We also have pieces from women in the military. That's something that we're bringing on this year. We're really excited about. And I also am excited about pieces that we have starting to showcase the various canteens that were around the country. We have pieces from two of the most well-known that also happen to have movies made about them, and that is the Hollywood Canteen and the Stage Door Canteen in New York.
Now, aside from the Aviation Discovery Fest, are there other activities that the Society puts on during the year?
Yes, so this happens to be our busiest time of year, and the Aviation Discovery Fest always kind of kicks it off. And we have other areas that we are bringing an exhibit to and doing demonstrations and discussions to, all the way from society and historical groups to we are going to be going to the Eisenhower birthplace December 12th for Eisenhower's birthday. As you know, he played a crucial part in World War II and as a president, so we will be there as well. And then we will be working with Camp Housey, which is one of the historical living historian groups that is at the Aviation Discovery Fest, and we'll be doing an event with them as well later on in this month.
Sounds good. What is your favorite part of the Aviation Discovery Fest?
I have two, so I have to honestly say both. Number one are the veterans. I mean, to meet them and speak to them, I mean, we owe them so much, and our heartfelt gratitude for everything that they did. It is such an honor to be able to be in their presence and talk to them. So number one, hands down, I absolutely love our veterans. But number two is seeing the younger generation come and really learning about this crucial time in our history. This is really such a turning point for our country, for the world, and it's something that needs to be taught, and it needs to be taught often. So to see these younger generations come in, to ask questions, to see their eyes light up, to see the airplanes, to see the living historians, I can't say enough of it. It's really something special, and I'm honored to be a part of it.
Well, Jamie, we are glad that you and the rest of the members of the Dallas Vintage Women's Society are a part of supporting Aviation Discovery Fest and really telling a part of this World War II history that, as I mentioned, sometimes kind of gets overlooked. So looking forward to seeing the group there, and hope you guys have a great weekend.
Thank you.
And that is going to do it for our show for tonight. Thank you for being a part of the the show. And again, Aviation Discovery Fest to find out more, the schedules, the rides with the aircraft, all the latest aircraft that will be at the show, and some of the veterans and when they will be speaking. Just go to CAF, the Commemorative Air Force website, commemorativeairforce.org, and go into the events tab, and you'll find everything you need to know about Aviation Discovery Fest. And we thank you for being a part of the show tonight. Remember, if you would like to, please share with others on your social media platforms. And if you do watch us on YouTube, please subscribe and click that bell icon. You'll get notifications when our next episodes go live on YouTube. All right. If you have any feedback about tonight's show or any of our shows, or maybe an idea for a future show, just drop Leah Block an email at media@cafhq.org. Until next time, I'm Steve Buss for the Commemorative Air Force. Have a great night.